Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Todd Glass. Todd started comedy at age 16 in Philadelphia, and he has appeared on The Daily Show, Jimmy Kimmel, and Conan O'Brien. You can see his recent special, Act Happy, on Netflix. Welcome, Todd.
Hello.
So I know this is going to be a good conversation. You know how I can tell?
How?
We've been having a great conversation as I've been setting up.
I know. I thought about that. I thought, why don't you just shut up, Todd? This is my favorite thing to do, full disclosure. Next to doing comedy, I love talking about comedy.
That's great. So then that precludes I'm taking that off the list of answers for my first question, which is if you weren't working as a comedian or talking about comedy, what would you be doing?
Well, I thought I was going to do landscaping. You know, when I was younger, I know what I liked about it. You can transform a lot in a very small amount of time, and it's really fun. And I don't have a lot of patience. Like, you can only build so quick. Matter of fact, if you build too quick, it's probably not a good sign. You know, you want to. But with landscaping, with the right equipment, you can like transform a home in like a day, depending on what you're doing.
Yes,
and do major amounts of work. So when I was younger, I liked that. I would see a home get landscaped in, maybe 2 days, and I'd be like, "What the fuck?" And I was like a little kid. So, but the truth is, I don't like labor. I don't like doing labor. But I thought in my head, here's what I thought when I was really approaching what am I going to do for a living? You know, I was getting ready to graduate high school. I'd started stand up at that point. But before that, like at 15, what am I going to do? And I thought maybe I could be a landscaper. I thought, well, yeah, but Todd, you don't like doing the work part. Like I would see the guy who was probably 50 who owned the company.
Yes.
He's got so many people working for him. He shows up. He's like, put that there. We're losing light. And, he hoses the sidewalk off. He's got 3 guys making sure the hose doesn't get tangled. That was a real guy, by the way. I thought, well, I don't need to really make that much money in the beginning because I live at home with my parents. So I'll hire 2 people to work with me, and maybe I won't. Maybe I'll break even, but I'll establish my business.
I see.
So that was sort of my plan. But I don't like the heat either. So thank God for stand-up.
We are actually, we're at your very lovely house, which is nicely manicured in the front. You must pay people to do that.
It's pretty reasonable in LA because it's, labor can be so cheap. So
Indeed.
yeah. But I get my hands a little dirty.
You actually made a comment about how you're going to have the AC on when I got here. It'd be nice and cool. So both you and I run hot.
Yeah.
And so it's nice having, I actually had a landscaping business when I was a kid. When I was a teen.
In Jersey?
In Jersey, in South Jersey. And I agree with you about the transformation of a yard. So to me, landscaping is the haircut, is like how do you say it? To make over a home quickly, you landscape it and paint it. To make over a person quickly, you give them a haircut.
Right.
Give them some new clothes. Right? And so it's like that's the house version of a makeover.
That's funny. And it does. It's, it seems people, I always feel like the way to say it, like I want to say it is I know people say, oh, landscaping makes a home look better. But it can do so much more than that. If you have tons of money, you can do tons of things, but sometimes relatively reasonable. Like when I see someone what they spend on their home and I go, oh, but I could find something in that home that would have freed up money to do more landscaping and done a lot more. Like, did you? But it really does make a home look. That's why I wanted to do a thing called Flip This House, when all I did was paint them and redo the landscaping and then let someone else have the vision. But a home that they wouldn't even give a fucking shot at, I'll just come in there 2 days, paint a little landscaping, and then flip it. That's all I do.
Yeah, I think, and also, the thing about, I did a lot of like shitty menial jobs when I was a teen, and the one thing that was nice about the landscaping job was it was my job. Like it was just me. I had a wheelbarrow and I would put the lawnmower in the wheelbarrow with like a rake and a weed whacker, and I just push it around the neighborhood and do this all on my own.
It.
And the problem, and so the nice thing is when you finished a yard, both you and the owner felt good. Like there's not a lot of jobs that both people feel equally good about.
Yeah, it's like therapy for certain people when you do a job like that, because you maybe they had it on their mind. They can't even imagine doing it. You come in, all of a sudden the lawn's cut, it's weeded. Yeah. They're like, oh,
And who doesn't love giving like a 16-year-old $20 to do something that,
Oh, you were 6, so you were super young.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, it's, by the way, there's a place called First Image up the street. I'll give them a shout out because I saw they did exactly what we're talking about to a house up the street.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. I'll put it in the notes.
First Image. It's real, baby.
So you're not a landscaper. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Or
sorry.
Running one. Yeah. And I came across your work, I think when I was working on the humor code. Because one of the things I really like about you is you have strong opinions. And you have very strong opinions about comedy clubs. So when I was unpacking, you were talking about bad comedy clubs in Philadelphia and why Philly was a bit of a desert for good comedy for a long time.
Yeah, well, for a long time now they have a great comedy club. They have Helium. But for a long time they didn't. And there was the Comedy Works in the 80s, and that was great. And what I mean by great, but like there was the Comedy Works, and they brought in guys like Richard, in the beginning of their careers, Richard Lewis, Paul Reiser, a young Eddie Murphy, Jerry Seinfeld, Gary Shandling, Chris Rock. And so the list, and he had a really broad taste in comedy. Even back then, he represented as many types of comedians you could. If there were funny women, they worked there.
I see.
But then it didn't have anything for a while, and I noticed something. Like people always think, "Oh, is comedy over?" It's not over, but you have to keep currying. You have to know what you're doing, And so there wasn't. And I noticed something because a guy came to me and he said, "What about opening up a club in Philly? Why has no one done it?" I said, "Well, let me tell you something. Don't go to the 5 people or 6 people that have tried it in the last 5 years, because I have a common thread of everything that they'll all do. Nothing that has anything to do with why their business failed will have anything to do with them." I go, "Does that say everything, Mark?" And he opened up in Philadelphia and did it right and is doing very, very well. So, it was really bummed me out when they didn't have like a top-notch club, in Philly. But now they do.
Yeah, I mean, and Philly deserves one. I mean, Philly is, I think, on the cusp of being an elite city.
Like New York, Philadelphia. It's like and you know what? Let me say this without insulting anybody, because I am obsessed with the perfect club. But I always ask myself, why am I telling you this? Why am I talking to you about this? I've talked about it before.
I know.
But I could talk about it more.
I know your blue curtain tirade.
Well, you ask, if you're interested, I learn, I love to talk about it, but I'll preface why. Because I really do hope that somebody hears it and listens. And I always have a new angle on it. The thing is, and I'm not going to name clubs. I've raved about a lot of clubs. So, But even the one, a friend of mine said this to me a long time ago, and I'm glad he said it. Otherwise, I'd look like I was going crazy. Like, oh, now you're going to pick on the good clubs? Because I always, but even some of the good ones suck. It's like they build them like comedy clubs, and I can't fucking figure it out why they think, like it could look like a hip jazz club. It doesn't cost more to just get different materials and different backdrop,
Okay, wait, hold on. Let's step back for a second, because you're already a mile ahead of my listeners.
I know.
Right, you're a mile ahead of me. So let me tee this up. Okay.
Yes.
So comedy is a special art form, right? In the same way that opera is a special art form. And so opera works best in a particular venue, and comedy works best in a particular venue, right. And so, opera is about sound and comedy is about laughs, right? And so the idea being, and, there's some good behavioral science to support these ideas, but people talk about, okay, there's some very basics that should happen for a comedy club, right? So we were talking about this earlier. Cold is better than warm.
If they only knew. I know, like we said, we know that the reason that some clubs are hot is not because they don't know that cool would be better. It's been proven that people buy more drinks. They don't, when it gets too hot in a club, they don't buy the expensive drinks. They buy, they already feel gross and sticky. They don't want to drink with sugar. But cold, of course, I don't think they do it like we said before we started the podcast, because they don't know that. I just think a lot of times fixing the air conditioning is very, very, very expensive.
Yes.
And they don't think it's worth it, but they're very, very wrong.
Okay, so cold for comedy. The next thing is darkness for comedy, right? That you want a sense of anonymity. It's easy to laugh when you're cloaked in darkness.
Exactly.
You know, especially in a world where people are telling jokes that might be off color or risque and so on.
And let me just say this, because I've learned you're not going to get, like, no one's going to take this to heart unless you stop and preface it, because nobody that owns a club, let's say someone that owns a club is listening to this right now.
Okay.
Now, by the way, there are very good clubs. So those people, if they were listening, would probably go, we do pretty much everything he's talking about. But even someone that there's someone that could present comedy so wrong, but would listen to us right now with the headsets on going, yeah, of course, dark. Yeah, dark. But because they think bright means like, you know, the sun is out and every window's open, although it's been done that way. Sometimes too many neon things around the room.
You want darkness.
Yeah, or not for the staff to see. You put rope lighting in, but yes, it has to be sometimes even like a door to a bar. That's where I hear people that hear me talk about it and they go, come see my place. And I feel bad. Quite the contrary do I want to go in and pick. I want to go in and fall in love. When I see it done right, I get excited. I'm not looking to pick. The things that I'm mentioning are just ironclad wrong. They have a bar, maybe even put a curtain in it. But the people sitting back there, the noise, and the curtain opens and it shuts and it opens and it shuts. You wouldn't go to a movie if that happened. If you went to a movie, and I won't exaggerate, because it's the same. If you own a club and you are listening to the words that come out of my mouth, you have to tell me my analogy isn't bad, or you have to fix what you do. Make it like a movie theater. Even the worst movie theater in the world, where they need new carpeting and maybe this, they know double doors. Yes,
that's right.
Double doors and dark. If you were at a movie, and let's just say, I won't even say 1,000 times. I'll be very realistic. 12 times during the movie, a side door opened, an outdoor light came in. 12 times.
It would drive me
What about
crazy.
6 times? I think more than once. Once you'd be like, what the fuck was that? Twice you'd be like, just a third you'd walk out and go, what's going on? 3 door openings, realistically, and you know that's true. You go, well, the same at a club. It's like you can't have it. You got to get people into a room. And by the way, the clubs that do that, it doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar club. Some are big, expensive clubs and done right. Sometimes it could be the Comedy Addict in Bloomington, Indiana, that he gets it. Just dark, and they don't want to hear noise. They don't want to hear a bar. They have that right. They're paying to see comedy. Cut them off from the outside world. If you can't do that, then you don't know how to fucking present comedy. Stop it already.
That's great. And I agree. And to be honest, I know the theory. And now you've been in hundreds of clubs and hundreds of venue, good, bad, and ugly. And so you've seen. Now, we'll get to the rest of the list of these things. It's like I have a list. They're not down there in my head. But you're a professional. How do you not lose your mind when that door is opening and closing while you're doing your set?
Well, luckily, I'm at the point where most of the clubs that I work are, they're
I see.
They're good.
You're moving on up.
I'm moving on, and if I'm not, what I do is like, if either I'm touring with someone big and opening up in theaters for them, which makes it mean that I only need to work about 30% of the year. I do that, opening up for acts. The other 7, so I'm able to pick the clubs I really like. But when I don't, what I call otherwise people, I'll lose people. Even when what they say a good club, they are good, but they still have that. Like, I wish they'd fix it. Like, it drives me fucking nuts.
Will you stay away from these? Like, are there places that you just go, I'm just not going to do it?
If it's really bad.
If it's
like, I'll give you an example. I won't name a club.
Okay.
There's noise that comes in from the kitchen, from the bar.
Yes.
So I was like, you got to put a speaker up over that door. First of all, they're trying to be quiet back there, but it's not their fault that. Look, the best of the best, when you're building your club, you make mistakes. I'm sure the next club, but when you see 2, 3, 4 clubs all making the same mistake, you go, oh, you're not figuring it out. But in the beginning, yes, of course, great clubs make mistakes. So it's not their fault that the bar is so close to the showroom. The staff, they're trying to hustle drinks.
Indeed.
So I said, put a speaker over the door. And they did.
And wait, the speaker is pointed towards the crowd or it's speaking
Towards the crowd. It just,
Okay.
it's so loud that it helps. They still have to try to be quiet back there. But a speaker right over the door that opens and closes helps muffle the noise
I
that's
see.
coming out of the
Okay.
bar.
Yeah.
You know, so you just ask for that. Or, you know, sometimes if I'm at a club and there's just light coming in, like to the kitchen area, you know, there's like a long hallway at one club. And then down the long hallway is a kitchen area. You know, the good clubs, they'll let me do it. And for lack of a better way of saying it, God bless them. But I go and unscrew the lighting. So at least when the door opens, light isn't pouring in.
Yes.
So I change and manipulate as much as I can. And, you know, try to make it great.
Yeah, that's really neat. I like the fact that you actually step in and try to do some things. So the next thing, which you probably can't fix, which is you want a low ceiling. Comics love a low ceiling. Get those laughs bouncing down on the audience and spreading throughout the room.
No, I there must be some people that disagree with us. And I'm not talking about, I want to be very fair here. If you're doing a one-nighter and you're going to an existing room and everything else is right about it, but you're like, oh, I wish it had low ceilings. No, we're not. We're talking about when you build from the ground up or when you're looking for a venue. Yeah, they don't have to be low like
But
New
you want
York.
8 or
that's
9
cool.
foot ceilings.
Pretty low.
Yes.
Some clubs get it. If they're really high, they can bring them down in other ways through these, you know, things you hang from the ceiling. But you know, sometimes I'll look at a club. There's one in Philly, the not the Helium, but the other one, and it's like, so I'm past the point of just wanting to complain. Mm-hmm. I really am. I'm like, look, I know a lot, and I'm not going to be sarcastic. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I want to hear what the opposing. When you build a cavernous club, there's one. It's called Laugh Out Loud in Austin. And the ceilings are so high. It's a cavernous room. It could hold 400. They are not prepared if there's 100 to make it look quaint.
I see.
But I want to ask them. I really do. I want to go, help me. Like, that's an overused phrase, but help me understand it. And part of what I'll do for you is even if it comes out of your mouth, I don't agree, I will shut up and listen because I'm not going to get the truth out of you. And here's the 2 questions. One, I fantasize going to the person. Do you think the low ceiling thing is, it can be that way, but it can be high? So help me out here. And then I don't know what they would say.
Yes, I think.
But yeah, of course, low ceilings, you know, it's like, it's not an opinion. You know, there are certain facts in a opinion based.
As I said, the science backs all of these things up. So you pull from different, you can pull from different areas of psychological research or ecology and so on around this. The last one I think is an interesting one, and that is the color red. That there's a belief. Now this one, the effects I think from a scientific standpoint are probably rather small, but the idea that there's something special about the color red versus other colors. So the Improv in New York, you know, first comedy club in the United States, had this red brick background. Bud Friedman. Do you know the story behind the red brick background?
You know, I don't. I know why the brick works, but what is this?
So it's a fascinating story, Frank. So the place was like a Vietnamese restaurant that he converted into a club, and they pulled the paneling off the wall. I think it was like old wood paneling. Maybe it was drywall. I can't remember. And exposed this red brick. He just didn't have the money to put anything over it, so he just left it.
And it looks, and he lucked out because it's not only brick, but it was brickworks. Because I've always said, because it's warm and it's cold and it's everything, and it's not assuming, and it's. But there's other things you could do. Like I don't want anything drawn behind me. Like that's another thing for someone that puts things behind the comedian. I'm not saying it looks horrible. And some of them I like better than others, but overwhelmingly,
what would be behind you besides the name of the club?
A mural.
I know Comedy Works in downtown Denver. I had Wendy Curtis on.
Yeah.
So we actually did the interview on her stage. It has the Comedy Works logo behind you with a brick wall.
Hers is perfect, and it looks nice, and it's industrial, which I think is sort of cool. But yet it's that the Comedy Works does it right. But I don't like
no murals.
You know, here's the thing. I'm going to just say this. I'm going to say this. there's going to be some clubs that I have great affection for that do the mural. But guess what? I grow as a comedian. You can grow as a club. It still means your club's great, but the next time around, don't just do it. You know what makes a bad comedian? The same thing that makes a bad club owner. You have all this potential, and then you don't have the ability to grow. And I think that's what happens with a lot of comedians. I've been through phases where, if what I'm saying doesn't make sense, then this should. Let me say it a different way. Same fantasy. You have a mural behind you.
When you say mural, you mean like Charlie Chaplin
city,
and
a bridge, whatever. A mural that's and a lot of places do it. And again, a lot of places, they're really, really good clubs. But on that one, I think, well, Todd, does everything have to be the way you want it? No, we're not talking about saying, I would have used a lighter green in the green room. Or I would have, come on, Todd, you got to give a club credit. These are tangible things that can be fixed. But if a mural behind the comedian makes sense, picture it this way. There's a club and they just have brick. I saw a club that had corrugated metal, clean, simple.
I see.
And then they had it's called a gobo, and it shines an image of light that says the name of the club.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Corrugated metal, real classy up in the corner.
Yeah. It's like Chipotle.
Is that what they do? Hey, they get it. But corrugated metal. There's other things you can do. I just like the Acme Comedy Club. When I say a curtain, I don't mean a curtain like at a house, like a curtain like a heavy
theater curtain.
Theater curtain. Because at the end of the day, when it's dark in a room, all they see is what's behind the comedian. So just have that be clean and vibrant and brilliant. So when they have a mural, I always fantasize, okay, so if you went into a club and there was just nothing behind the comedian, a brick wall or just a thick theater curtain, in your head you're thinking, I know this isn't going to make it a lot better and it won't be too distracting at all, but what about like a drawing? Why? There's one thing for them to look at, and you don't need anything else. So if I'm wrong, help me understand. Help me, because hold on, I can get a little sarcastic. You are doing it because you think it makes the stage better.
Yes.
I'm going into that thinking that's what you're doing. Because if you were going, of course I want to make the stage. I want to I present comedy. I want to do it well.
That's right.
So either I'm right and you have to go tilt your head a little and go, you know what? We're going to redo our club in blue. We're going to change it. You don't need fucking shit drawn behind the comedians. By the way, it also looks good in perspective at the club sometimes because you see what's on either side of it and you see it's a beautiful club. But when you videotape there, it looks like you're at a shithole.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we've got darkness, this low ceiling, cold, clean background. Is there anything about that level of importance that you would add to the list?
Yeah, whenever there's a great club, sometimes you can simplify it. There's a club, like I said, it's called the Comedy Addict in Bloomington, Indiana. The best club, one of the best audiences on the planet. And my brother goes, why? Because it's not a fancy club. And I said, you know what? You need some standards. Granted, he has a nice sound system there. It's not expensive, but it's clean. You can hear yourself. There's a monitor. The lighting is simple, but he gets it. The room is, it's like, it's a compliment. It's like a shabby chic type of a room.
It.
And so I'm not saying if you do the thing I'm about to tell you right now that you don't need a few others, but this is the icing on the cake and so ignored. They always make those announcements. A comedian friend of mine said, don't heckle, which they should, don't heckle, don't yell out. But that's not really the death of a comedy show. It's talking at the tables. And people get irate. They say we were just laughing. It's been going on forever, but it's not a sign of phones. It's nothing to do with today. It's just now, since comedy started, people talking, they always go, he's just laughing at the joke. So he goes, what makes that club so good? And I'm going to be very specific about it. What makes John Mulaney past the point when he goes clubs go there? What makes Patton Oswalt go to the comedy? If 10 is the strictest you can be with table conversation, I mean, every club's going to at least be a 5. If it's too loud, they will go over, hey guys, 6 is a little stricter. He's a 10.
I see.
He is a fucking 10. This is art. And I can't do comedy, but to me what he's saying is I'm presenting it right. And I did zero fucking talking. And because of it, the crowds are just the best. And anybody can do that. That's what boggles my mind. If they see that, you could do it at your club. That's where I get fucking lost. Like, you hear stories about his club.
Yeah. It's they're afraid of disappointing the customers, but what they don't realize, it's the 1 in 10 that's poisoning The room.
A back area, one person talking. I always tell doormen when I'm at a club, I'm very friendly with them. I know most of the doormen. I say, listen, for heckling, one doorman, it's going to take a turn, but I want to let him know. One doorman can deal with heckling, usually, unless the club's a shithole.
Yeah.
One doorman can deal with heckling in a room that holds 400. You have one heckler, but table talk, you have to roam. A good club has a doorman. If they only have two, even if you have to roam, because there could be someone talking all the way in the back that's only affecting 12, 13, 20 people, but that's not good.
No.
So that you gotta just be, have a zero tolerance for that. And then you develop these wonderful audiences. And let me tell you this real quick. I know I go long with everything.
No, this is why I'm talking to you.
Louis Lee once told me, because like I
Wait,
said.
Who's Louis Lee?
Louis Lee owns Acme in Minneapolis.
Okay.
I think it was Louis that told me this. Because I hope that people hear this. I always do. I hope I say it in a way that makes somebody go, he's right. Let me change. Let me make it better. I want it to be great. He said, yes, you're afraid. Look, people know not to heckle. So no one wants confrontation.
And I actually think that I've talked to comedians about this. Heckling's not a problem. Like, comedians can handle a heckler.
You're right. It's not. I mean, look, if someone's bad, you want someone there. I'm not trying to act like, because I don't like heckling at all, but I'm saying it's not the problem. So he said, but if someone's heckling, they know it's wrong. So if you go over and you tell them, they might be a little indignant. But when you have to tell them to shush, I know, I've been in the business a long time. So when he told me this, I go, I know they act like if there was a videotape of just their reaction and someone said, how was this customer told to be quiet? You'd have to go, a new staff, like shut the fuck up or shut your fucking, no, here, roll it in its entirety. Guys, I'm sorry, but could you please? They act, their heads turn. I see the doorman walk back to his station, where he's standing, and they turn, what? Like that? What? They can't believe that someone politely told them to shush.
Yes.
So he goes, so I never wanted to deal with it. I also had a mortgage to pay.
Yes.
So if they're not heckling and they're talking on a scale from 1 to 10, I'll put everything in numbers, be very clear, because I think it explains everything. At 10, yes, he'd know we'd have to get him out of there, even if it was talking. But if it was a 4 or a 5, maybe they'll stop. But the first time he went over, and he had to throw a table of 4 out. As he went back to the table, because a girl forgot her purse, he 3 times on the way out, people at other tables looked at him. Thank you.
Yes,
thumbs up.
you.
He goes, wow, I'm so worried. Now, look, if you don't have the money and you opened up a comedy club, I think what's happened, if you're running out of money, you got to keep the doors open. You start just going, well, I'm going to not mind that. But who wouldn't want to present comedy like the Comedy Addict in Bloomington or Helium's at their best or DC Improv? Who wouldn't want to present it like that? So I think what happens is, because don't tell me every city, here's the way I look at it. You can cultivate. And by the way, for people that don't give a shit.
There's nothing special about Bloomington per se. It's the way the club's being run.
The only thing you need the money, if you're out there listening, you go, I want to open up a good club and I want to call. Yeah, it takes a little longer because by masses, you're asking for a percentage of society that really values comedy. They don't come and think it's a shit festival. So maybe you just need the money to stay open and not mind if it's half of a house. But you'll go slow and do it. So you need and maybe when they're running out of money, we'll let people talk. We'll advertise birthdays. I see how it happens.
Yes.
But don't tell me every city on the planet. You're not looking for 10,000 people 5 shows a week. You're not looking for 1,000 people to do 5 shows a week. I know it's not as easy as it sounds, but you're looking for maybe 250 people to have 6 shows a week.
I see.
If you wait it out and do it right, you'll get the best of the best.
I love this idea because I'm working on this new project where I talk about why you want to fire customers at times. Right, so that's fine.
Is that okay, loud?
Yeah, we're good. Todd's putting on a fan to cool off. He's working up a sweat here.
I know, right? I told you before we sat down, I have like a little portable fan that I just rigged up under my dining room table. It's like a 7-inch fan, and I go, instead of turning the air on, I just get a little air movement.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, this idea of firing customers and how it's good for your employees, and it's how it's good for your other customers, and being really aware of that. So this is a nice example of that. So going back, darkness, ceiling, cold, clean background. I need you to rank them. So you can't have them all. You need to rank them.
Why? But why can't I have them all? That's like a clean operating room. They go, what makes an operating room important? And they list 6 things, and the surgeon goes, well, you can't have them all to the surgeon. He goes, well, then I'm not fucking operating here. No, it's not like a fucking best of here. It's like, no, I need these 10 things that make an operating room at its best, and if I have 8 of them, well, what about 9? If I have 9 out of 10, I don't fucking do, what the fuck? What do you think we're doing? What the fuck is this? So I get all of them. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, which one do you care most about? If you had to choose, it's like Sophie's choice for the 4 things.
The darkness.
Darkness number 1. What's number 2?
Because you can hide the darkness. Give me some of the others.
So it's ceiling, cold, clean background are the next 4.
If I had to have 2, darkness and cold.
Okay, so
you know what? I take it over. Depends how bright. I have to say cold more than anything for me. I can't. For me, it's more than even the audience. I just don't. My mind is.
I know.
It's done. It goes.
So cold, darkness, ceiling, clean background. That's what it sounds like. All right, that's good.
But hopefully all.
Yeah, of course.
And by the way, I always like to end by being positive. Even if the majority of clubs don't do this, there are some that do. So, and by the way, the more you do right, the more you're open. Clubs are open for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
So that means, if you're looking at it like from a 2-year, I get it. But if you go 40 years, these are some things. Anyway, I'm done.
No, that's good. So my last question about this. Have you thought about opening a club? Rodney Dangerfield opened up a club. It does happen.
You know, I thought about it, but here's the problem. I'm not delusional when it comes to the other side of it.
Yes.
You know, it sounds like I'm hard on club owners. I'm not. I have great affection for a lot of good club owners. On the other side of it are comedians. And I probably have some dear friends that maybe could, not old school trash the green room, they just ripped the lighting off, but do it. And I don't want to know that about them. I don't want to get a call because even though I'm a silent owner, Todd, I hate to tell you this, but blah, blah, blah was here and they said they'd pay for it. And I'd be like, that fuck. I do everything perfect, that fuck. So what I would like to do is maybe open up a club with someone else. And I'm like, I go in and I'll make it a signature Todd Glass club.
I see.
He can sell it that way to comedians. It's Todd Glass's signature club. But then I do it. I open it up to prove a point, how it would run, everything, how it would run, what would happen. See if it does well. Then I stand back. Whatever you do with it, you can do with it. I'm done. Give me 10% the rest of its life.
I see.
And I don't want to call. I don't want to have any. I just a silent.
There's something. So this is actually connecting. All right. So I'm going to look for a third story here. So you're.
You edit, right?
No.
Oh, you don't? Okay, cool.
Don't worry about
I don't mind.
I mildly edit. It's fine. The landscaping is about transformation. Your for lack of a better word, rant about comedy clubs is about transformation. Is this a thing for you?
Well, I do enjoy.
Do you do this with cars? Do you do this with meals? Are you like a person who goes, I could see how, are you constantly looking for ways to make improvements?
It's funny you say that because, I guess overwhelmingly a lot of people might be, but it's funny when you put it together that way, it's sort of, I'm even thinking of things here. I'm sort of obsessed with it. And sometimes like a quick transformation,
your easy fixes,
but make, I was trying to sell a show to HGTV once called, low amounts of money, big fucking changes.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's not like, we spent $100. All right. What are you going to do for, someone's got $100 and you'd be like, yeah, watch. So I do like to transform anything, what's it called? Transform things. Yeah. Even if it's a club, sometimes I'll go to a club and I love to look at it when it's done. Like there was a club in Philadelphia. It's still there. And, I would go there in the summer. It's in the suburbs, and they let me do whatever I wanted.
Okay.
And, you think, well, what can you do in 2.5 hours before the doors open? A lot of times it was black tablecloths. They had them there. I said, well, you get them. I'll pay for them. He goes, no, we'll get them. Mm-hmm. Black tablecloths, candles. They don't normally have candles. No problem. There's fake brick walls all around the club, but they look good, but they have free soda, I go, the person's name. I go, look, if you think I'm crazy, it's fine, but you're asking me to come back. You got to take those down. He goes, we took them down Thursday last week.
That's
so
great.
when you get there, and I have a 3-piece band playing jazz as they're coming in. The steps up to the place, it's all white. It's all white. They're walking into the place. It's above a restaurant. They don't let me turn the lights out because people will trip. I bought, I'm not kidding, 20 flashlights off of Amazon, like $9 with batteries. Taped one on every single stairs, turned the lights out. So now you walked up a dark stairs, saw these pictures of comedians over the last 30 years, turned the corner. Every light that existed was only 4 overhead. I gelled blue. Now you're in a deep, deep blue room with a 3-piece band playing jazz as you're coming in. Black tablecloths everywhere. Still pretty much a shabby room. The carpeting's old. And the waitress came in and she said it. I'll never forget it. She goes, this is not just a little bit better. This is fucking night and day.
Yes.
Now this place is a find. In 2.5 hours, not like, oh, it looks a little better. Oh, okay, well, I see that. No, like now I'm proud to work here.
Yes.
If someone came up the stairs and came into the room, they'd be like, okay, this is where he works. And I think I enjoy that transformation to a certain point.
So I'll share this with you when it comes out.
You can edit that out.
No, that might be the most interesting part of the stories you've been telling.
I do it with food. I'm constantly looking like, oh, if I take that food, I take a donut and put ice cream on it. That'll make an ice cream. Just like fix. I don't like to cook, but I doctor.
You like to fix.
I like to just fix up what's already there.
Yeah. So I'm always working on the title of the podcast of the episode while I'm talking to my guest. And so I wrote down Transformations with Todd Glass, but I think I might change it into Cheap Transformations.
Cheap transformations. Because you know what? A lot of people don't have money, and you think like, what can you do? Like, so I'm always thinking that way. Even when I'm doing some Instagram food, and I'm always thinking like, I'm not loaded, but I have, I'm more comfortable than I was when I was 21.
Indeed.
So I'm always thinking like, okay, maybe what can I make that tastes fucking amazing? But like I can go, okay, that's $5 what we just made,
I'll tell you this now, but I have so I had this guy, Troy Campbell, who's a colleague of mine, and he's like worked with Disney. He's done a whole analysis of what makes a good Disney ride. And it's the kind of things that you're talking about, like how you onboard someone, how you offboard someone, how you tell a story. And so I'll send you the episode when it comes out. I think you might get a kick out of it because he actually helped me create I had a party. Help me actually do a bunch of things to make the party more enjoyable. Oh,
because those people, a lot of times people that are in production, their weddings are nice because they like my friend's having a wedding, he hired just a PA.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a, what do they call that wedding runs a wedding?
Event planner.
Yeah, event planner. Just have a PA because they know,
they know how to do this stuff.
They know how to get
so I did. Yeah, it was really a great experience.
But, I feel good about the conversation because I said to myself, because you mentioned the comedy clubs, I'm trying to start, if I'm going to talk about the same thing, how could I say it where it would make people take heed to it? Like when we talk about good lighting, I like that you make the specifics or throwing someone out. Oh, everyone's going to throw out a 10, but that explains it. They go, oh, we throw out people to talk. But now I separated it. I go, he's a 10 of throwing people out of strictness. If 10's a strictness, what are you?
Yes.
Okay, because if you're a 5, just you could tell people not to talk once a week, but he's every single night. I mean, it's all right.
All right, we're going to jump back in.
Yeah.
So last thing about this comedy club thing and the environment stuff, because I like it. We talked about it in the humor code. It's coming up again in my new project. So talking on my podcast helps. Talking on Rogan about it helps. And then obviously it seems like when you go to a club, you are sort of you listen and then you're willing to give friendly advice and even go beyond friendly advice. You're willing to say, hey, do you mind if I kind of fuss around here a little bit, kind of a thing?
Yeah, I will. I'm going to borrow your pen so I remember.
Yeah.
I cockily what's that word? Take that out. I kiddingly just figured out the whole problem.
Good.
To where it goes wrong. And it actually makes some sense in the head of a bad club owner. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No.
So you just asked me about.
So I'm like this. You care about this. You can show results. If this becomes there's no writing a book on how to make a comedy club, right? Like, so then if this becomes your mission to make comedy better by making venues better, how how do you do it, right? Like you've already done this. I'm going to do exactly what you do. On a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of as a comic making comedy clubs better, you're probably about a 5 right now. How do you get to 10?
Did you not? And I'm sorry, this is your podcast. Did you ask me another question I was just getting ready to answer, or we forget?
No, this was about this idea. Yeah.
Well, I think you have to, like, you know, I go in the clubs. I try to find something I like about the club, number one, because I don't walk into a club and just go, do this, do that, do this. But most of the clubs I work now, if it's a new club asking me to work there,
yeah,
I call them on the phone myself. I go, look, here, I'm going to tell you this. Instead of my manager calling you, they're always super nice. Hey, Todd, how you doing? I go, yeah, you know what? I've been doing this a while, and my manager can try to explain it to you. And I tell them what we just talked about. I
see. Yeah.
And it's your club, I always say. So it might be uncomfortable you on the phone right now, but if it sounds like, oh, you play your own walk-in music, I play my own walk-out music, I might go, can we gel that light near the bathroom? If everything I'm saying on the phone to you right now sounds like, oh yeah, good. That's I'd love to have you, because they have to want me there to be. Because if they don't want me there, why do they want a guy changing around things?
Yes.
And I never have a problem because I do that.
I see.
And I went to the Blue Room in I'm going to forget where it's at, but it's the Blue Room Comedy Club, and he was just warm as fuck. Like, he took all the suggestions. But here's what I think happens.
Okay.
A lot of times when you have a comedy club, you also have a restaurant.
Yes.
And the battle is what comes first.
Yeah, this is a problem with comedy as an art form, right? No one's serving steaks during an opera.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to meet in the middle. It can be done right.
Okay.
It can be done right. In other words, clubs that have food. This is if you give a shit. If you don't and you're a club owner and you want to make money, but you can do both right. That's the sad part. You can do both right. And doing it my way, you'll do it longer. I know some people think, no, if you don't want to be a club that's serving dinners during the headliner. But there are clubs that have food that can be made not shitty. I don't want nachos pumped out with a basket. I don't want to work a club where an orange basket comes out. I can't make pretend it's nice. And I'm right. I'm not picking. If you serve food in an orange basket with a white piece of paper, I don't care if you use a metal basket with a brown piece of paper, but I can't make pretend I'm in a nightclub, and I'm not picking. If an orange basket with a white piece of paper doesn't say, and I seriously want an answer. I'm not kidding you. Like, it sounds like a sarcastic question.
It's a carnival.
If an orange basket with a white piece of paper doesn't say this, at least, I love comedy. Okay. But I could give a fuck about the way the food's presented. Now, if you have a club that has orange baskets with white paper and you hear this, I would imagine you go, all right. Yeah. Oh, so what's your rebuttal? So you think orange basket with a white piece of paper, that's you trying? I'm just picking. In other words, there's tons of ways to serve food properly. I've been to clubs because I'm up there. I've been doing this a long time. I want to make pretend I'm at a cool place, and it's hard when there's a fucking bowling alley, chicken strip served. But I'll throw Helium a credit.
Okay.
They have food that comes out looking beautiful, but it can be made quick. And that's what you need. People come, it doesn't have to be shit, but it has to be where they can do it quick. At Helium, 90% of the dinners are done by the time the show starts.
I see.
And you hear a manager go, "Hey, do a clean sweep." Some clubs, if you ask, won't serve food some in the first row. Just in the first row. I want those people, I need them 100% all the time.
I see.
So in the first, but there are clubs that can do food and drinks. They can do it right. But the problem is, sometimes you see the money the food's making and you get lost. Even a good person gets lost. Well, I'm making a lot of money on food. And Mark Babbitt said the answer to this. He's not denying that it's good to make money, or even drinks. This applies even if your club just serves drinks.
This is a business, of course.
Well, how dark do you have it? When do you stop serving food? Will you not serve food that you notice, we're serving dinners during the headliner. I don't want a club like that. But you're making money, and then everything gets clouded. Mark Babbitt, this says everything. He's not defying that money is made from food and drinks, and that money sometimes keeps the doors open. But he goes, in 30 years, I never, ever drove a hamburger to radio. And that says everything. They're coming to your club to eat your food because you drove a comedian to radio.
Yes. Okay.
If the food's so good, you can never go in and go, hey, who does the comedy club have here this week? We don't, but we brought in all the food we serve and everyone's going to sample it. And I'm not even sarcastic, and then we're going to serve it tonight. It would be. So when it comes to making choices, remember, you're getting to serve that food and you're getting to serve those drinks because you drove a comedian to radio.
Yeah, this is what we call an augmented service, not a core service. In marketing, right. It's like the laughs are the core service, and the augmented service is that you're not hungry.
You want me to tell you something? You're going to think I'm crazy? But I'm right. I know that seems crazy. I'm not. Look,
I'm not silently judging you.
No, okay.
I love what you're doing.
People, I always try to compare what I'm asking a club to do. It's the same thing a comedian should do. Sometimes you make gargantua changes in your act. Sometimes they're little changes. So because I make little changes, I don't think I'm a bad comedian. So when I say these things to clubs, I don't think it means they're a bad club. It means, don't you love things that are easy to fix? If I say something that makes sense, don't you want to be the club owner that goes, he's fucking right. Black napkins. Black napkins. Because if black napkins aren't right, again, I'm going to use my Todd class silly way of saying it. Imagine you have a club owner and he has all black napkins. Mm-hmm. And people wipe them out, they put it, sometimes they wrinkle it up, it's all over the table. So if you're saying white napkins are better, now, I would imagine, again, being a little sarcastic, you're saying white because you feel it makes your establishment look better. Okay, because if you say, I'm no white because I could give a fuck, then I won't invest my energy with you.
Wait, which do you want?
I want black.
You want black.
But I'm saying if black is wrong,
okay.
Imagine you had a club that had all black napkins,
yes.
and there's another club owner that he has white,
yes.
and he's hanging out at the club that has black napkins.
Would he judge them?
Yeah. Would he go, can I make a suggestion? I love your club. I notice you have black napkins. And, if white napkins are right, what I'm about to say shouldn't sound crazy. I notice you have black napkins. They disappear into the dark. Can I make a little suggestion? It's not a big suggestion, but I think it'll make your club look better. If you use white, you can see them all over the place with some sauce on them and dirty. White napkins, you got to get them. Like, you'll see 10 dirty there. Now, doesn't that sound silly? Who wouldn't want a napkin that people are wiping their mouth with and it might back up on the table on a busy night? There might be 5 scrunched up black napkins, when you're getting a little behind. So I'm like, black napkins.
Right.
And anybody who hears this, it doesn't go, he's right. I wonder what the fuck you're trying to do then. White napkins, just scrunch. And you know where it came from? I don't want to look at him. Yeah. I don't want to be on stage and look out and just see. Just let him be black. Let him disappear. It's dark. Let him disappear into the night.
I like what you're saying because not only, it serves a few purposes, and then I promise the listener we're going to move on. It serves a few purposes. One is
you can edit this.
No, it's fine.
Let me do an open. If you're 15 seconds forward, this is all my fault, and I'm sorry.
No, you shouldn't be. One thing is, I like this idea of, I have a saying, I don't say it to my students to their face, but I say to them, be a professional. I talk to my students about being a professional. But really what I'm saying is be a fucking professional. I just can't drop F-bombs in my MBA class. So there's a professionalism. Look, why does comedy suffer? Comedy suffers when it's not treated in a professional kind of way. And when you look at who are the most successful clubs, the most successful comedians, they have this thread, which is they are professionals, that they treat this as a craft. They're always looking for an edge. They're constantly trying to improve things as a result. And so and I agree with you. These things are not trivial, and they add up. And so I think it's neat. Now, I am going to ask you something though, because this seems incongruent. Something that you said once that I think is surprisingly incongruent, given what I know about you as a professional, and that is you rarely listen to your sets. You rarely record and listen to your sets.
I know, and I'm embarrassed because
this seems to me like everything I know about you.
Maybe embarrassed isn't the right word, but I will tell you this. I always knew it was a good thing to do. Since the beginning of time, comedians, tape your set. Mm-hmm. I would imagine some of them listen to them all. Some listen to them 30% of what they tape, but 30% is probably amazing. But I do. So when I'm getting ready for a special, I do.
Okay.
I would go on the road with a comedian. I work 2 of my favorite clubs. whatever they are, when I'm getting ready, and I bring somebody, and we get up in the morning, at 11 or 12, but that's
it's comic schedules.
Yeah. And then I have stuff all over the wall and cards and Post-its, and then we will listen to the set and see what okay, you said it,
and then you're
differently
writing
there.
on the posters and you're making changes and edits and so on.
And it's so helpful.
And you have someone there who's also listening and helping you.
The other comedian, whoever it might be that time, just go on the road with me, but I'll pay you a little extra because we're going to really work,
to do punch-ups and everything. Oh, it's great.
And it makes such a difference. But where I really learned it, and you would think, why aren't I doing it? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. You would think, well, now I do it. I used to say after my special, and it made a difference. I said, you know what? I don't want to lie. I'm going to tape my set every night. But how about this for a fair, something for me to work towards? How about once a week you listen to your set?
Okay.
And I didn't. I never have. I don't. But I listened to the podcast, and again, it helps me so much, probably because there's other people and it doesn't seem like so boring to me to listen to it.
I see.
The podcast, there's other guests. I hear things I didn't hear. But nevertheless, from listening to that podcast, about 50% of it every week, I have learned so much, and I don't know why. Maybe it's I'm bored easy.
Okay.
And I just listen. I lose.
Yeah. So for me, my world is, I give professional talks. And so watching the professional talk, I find it painful because, I see my mistakes and all the things that all the painful things about it is the reason why I should be listening to it. But it's also the thing that keeps me from listening to it or watching it,
Yeah. Or both, either.
It is a little bit of a sense of, it's like mildly embarrassing to watch yourself or listen to yourself.
You're echoing what's in my head.
Yeah,
There's some of that sentiment too. Yes.
Okay. So speaking of transformations, you've transformed your life somewhat in the last 8 or 9 years. You had a heart attack.
I did.
In your mid-40s, yes?
Yeah.
And so you're a lot leaner than you used to be.
I lost 30 pounds.
Yeah, you're fitter, leaner.
Yeah, I lost 30. I thought 30. Do I need to lose 30? But I do. I feel, amazing.
You look great.
I went in the morning.
I can't tell all the work you've had done.
I had a face transplant.
We were joking about being in LA and how I was like, oh yeah, so I'm sure he's had some work done, and you're like, yeah, but I can't tell, and you're like, well, that's
no, I never, no, nothing yet. But I would do it. Hopefully I do it right. But I back then I lost 30 pounds, and I also smoked cigarettes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I quit my.
How Philadelphia of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it was so much fun to smoke pot and smoke cigarettes, but I want to live. So
So you quit smoking.
I did quit smoking.
Was it difficult?
In the beginning, I thought, what no one told me, and Jesus Christ. I used to say ask smokers that hadn't smoked for 5 years. Because to me, I got 5 years. Okay, so they don't miss it. That's all I was looking for. They go, oh, you always miss it.
Yes.
I was like, what? So I'm just going to spend the rest of my life missing smoking? Now I know what they meant. So if someone asks me that's trying to quit, I can tell them the right answer.
What is the answer?
Yes, you always miss it, the smell, the sentiment of it. But I don't give a shit about smoking anymore.
I see.
90% of the time, I don't even crave it. Matter of fact, 100% of the time, I don't crave it because I did smoke. I had my heart attack. I quit smoking. And in that 5-year chunk after it, I smoked like 6 times.
Okay.
3 I actually liked. And then the 4th, I got nauseous.
Oh, really?
I got really nauseous. And I remember being bummed. And then I went, oh, no, that's good. And then that time after that, I took 1 puff and then never again.
Oh,
ever again. So, but I still miss the sentiment of it. I'd walk out. It smells good. Oh, it'd be fun to go out and talk to those people. But I don't give a shit anymore. So you always miss it, but it's easy not to smoke after a while.
I see.
Yeah, but I didn't even want to go anywhere. I thought, oh, Todd, you want to go to the Improv? No, not if I can't smoke. That's how, because that's what I'll do at the Improv. I'll hang out in the patio. I'll smoke cigarettes.
That's like the dirty little secret of habit formation and resetting habits is being aware of context. So,
I wish I could do it with food because let me tell you something. Oh, that's the struggle of my life. But I'm doing good in every other area. Yeah,
so, of course, the context thing is you just can't have the food in your house.
Well, go look around my cabinets because I don't.
Yeah, you can't.
I asked, like my nephew was staying here. I'm like, Tyler, hide your food somewhere. He goes, yeah, but you find it. I go, just still hide it.
That's really funny. It's interesting. Like I think it depends on what your bugaboo is or whatever. Like I had a party recently. One of my previous guests helped me plan the party. It was a big success. Thank you, Troy Campbell. I have a bunch of, chips and a bunch of, like my thing is no processed food. I don't want to buy food that comes in a box or a bag. It's just like, it's worthless for your health. I have a bunch of stuff that comes in a bag. It's in my pantry. I'm not tempted by it. Now, when I first was giving up processed food many, many years ago, I probably would have had to throw it out. Or, like I have done this at times where like there's a bag of like nachos. It's like half done and I'll just smash it. Just smash it. And people look at me like, what the fuck are you doing? And now it's impossible to eat. No one has to eat nacho crumbs.
I do something like it. And again, I'll make this quick in case I cut you off. Look, you still have to have some self-control, but it will put an end to it. If I'm on the plane and I go, Todd, you had half a sandwich. Now, I wish I could be the person that wrapped it up and had it an hour later, but I can't. So I take the napkin that I'm holding and I'll just touch under the seat. Like no one even notices. And then I press it on the sandwich. And I will never eat it after that again. Or the restaurant. I'll take a napkin under the table and press it on the food.
That's genius.
Just a little bit. No one notices.
Yeah,
no one notices.
Well, now the world knows. So let's step back to your health. I want to talk about your health for a little while. So you were living the kind of traditional comic lifestyle. You're on the road, you're eating chicken fingers, you're smoking. Were you drinking at the time?
Yeah, all I cut out was the
smoking, and you've gotten
my eating has gotten
and you're
a little better,
and you've exercised more now.
Yeah, I exercised then. I ran an hour and a half the day I had my heart attack.
Is that right?
The reason that I quit smoking, this will explain where I'm at with my health. I take the Lipitor. I'm on nothing else but Lipitor. That's it. I don't have anything else. One Lipitor, I take it. Okay. I could eat like crap and be on 50 milligrams of it, but I'm on 10 milligrams of it to you try, but we'll help you out to sand down the edges. So, but my diet can get pretty bad at night. But I don't want, if someone goes, hey, after your heart attack, hey, how's your diet? Oh, it's a little bad. I take my medicine. Do you smoke? I have to go, oh, yeah, a little. But at least it looks like I'm making an effort. Like, hey, how's your Lipitor? You take the Lipitor? Yeah. My doctor? I go every day. Have missed 2 days in 10 years. I take it. How's smoking? Haven't smoked a cigarette.
Okay.
How's your diet? At least at that point, I can go, it's still a battle. I can eat a lot of shit. But I juice every single day, like good juice, like kale, carrot, celery, beets, ginger, because my theory is at least my cells or whatever needs to replenish can go, Todd, you ate a lot of shit today, but thanks for giving us something pretty good. And thanks for not smoking, because that's really helping us out. And the juice does help. I wish you wouldn't eat that crap late at night, but you don't smoke and you gave us some really good nutrient in that juice you had. That's in my head the way I try to do it.
Well, you deal with it. I think that's interesting. I think that the reason that intermittent fasting, that so many people like it, is it works for a reason that they don't anticipate. So the idea of intermittent fasting is, you limit your calorie intake to, let's say, 8 hours a day, kind of a thing. And so for 16 hours of the day and night, you're not eating at all. So E.C. Sinkowski, she's among many other things, she's a nutritionist in Boulder, Colorado, used to work in CrossFit and so on. She talks about this. If you let's say you stop eating at 8 o'clock at night, right? And then you don't eat again until, noon the next day, kind of thing. The big reason, so one is that limits your calories, right? So obviously limiting your calories is good for the average person. The other one is almost no one in the world eats a delicious, healthy salad with light dressing and salmon on it at midnight. Right. The food that you eat after 9 o'clock at night is almost universally bad for you. Right. And so what happens is the intermittent fasting is just this safety net that keeps you from that fourth shitty meal.
But let me ask you this.
Yeah, sure.
Because believe me, I know it's hard if you look at me right now. I'm about 13 pounds overweight, but physically, I look good. Yes. I know that sounds weird to say because I know a lot of friends go, "Oh, Todd, you look good." Yeah, but I gained 13 pounds, which I want to take off. That 13 pounds makes me snore. And some people, their snoring isn't their weight. Some people it is. I know for a fact. So it's torturous. And I'm trying to take it off right now, but I don't get a good night's sleep, and I'm tired all day, and I want help. Like, I'm at the point where, somebody said, what's the difference between a bad habit? My friend that's a therapist, but a common sense therapist. He's got street smarts mixed with some really good technique, and that's my favorite. And he goes, look, call it whatever you want. How long have you had this? Call it a bad habit. How long have you had it? I had to think. I went, oh my God, it was so embarrassing. I go, 20 years? He goes, so 20 years you had a bad habit that you really want to stop. It sounds like an addiction. He goes, yeah, Todd, who gives a shit what we call it? But yeah, if it's a bad habit that you can't get control on for 20 fucking years. But I think, I don't know what to do. I want to call it, but I know it's going to take me working, and that's the part, no one's going to have any tricks. So I'll ask myself, can I get a hold of this?
Yes.
Because right now, it's hard.
The tough thing about the 13 pounds and the snoring is it actually creates this loop. So when you don't sleep well, what happens is you compensate by eating more because your energy's low, right? So there's this nasty situation where you don't sleep well, and in order to kind of have a normal day, you up your calorie intake, which then leads you to not sleep well, which leads right, and so
it's a vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle as a result of that.
But everything that everybody says, and some things make a lot of sense. I think you're saying some things that are really clean and make sense, but it all goes back to willpower. I guess I know I quit smoking, but 6 nights a week I eat.
I hate to tell you this, but I have the solution for you.
Can I tell you one more thing though?
Of course.
I get the only thing that helps me motivate to lose weight now is if I'm doing something, like if I'm shooting a special, or I'm going to Philly and I want to look good because I'm going to see my friends and family and I want to feel good on stage. But that's my motivation. That's not the type of motivation I can use anymore. I get it. So, but if you tell me something and it'll work, but let me tell you something. It can't be like what I eat because I know what bad food is. I know what good food is. How do you get the power to go fucking no, I don't need to eat at 11 o'clock at night. I ate.
So the thing is that willpower is overrated, right? So goals and willpower are overrated. It's all about creating new habits. And the way to create new habits is to create a context.
But doesn't creating what you're saying take willpower?
Some of it does. Yeah, some of it does. Now, of course, so the best way to create new habits is to actually have some change, right? So when there's some change in your life, that's a good way to do it. So, I have some common sense things. These are things that EC would say. I'm gonna link to her stuff for the people in the thing. So, EC has something called the 800-gram challenge. Okay, and so I don't want us to go too long on this, but this is important. Right, this is your health, right? And so the first thing is some of this is pulled out of CrossFit. What do you want to eat? You want to eat meat, fish, vegetables, fruits, nuts, little starch and no sugar, right? That's the sort of.
How do you not? But here's the question: I don't need help what I need to eat. I need help what I shouldn't be eating. Right. How not to?
Yes. Okay. So the things that you need to eat. Those are those things. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that what EC puts forth. So she wants you eating 800 grams of fruit and vegetable a day. Okay, and there's two purposes for that. So you say you juice.
Yes. Is that bad?
It's not that it's bad. It's not as good as if you ate the kale and the orange and the banana. And here's why. Is because that food crowds out the other shit that you're putting in your body. And so what it does is it just keeps you full and digesting and thus sated in a way that juice doesn't. And so you have to stop drinking calories. Even if it's fruit or even if it's vegetable calories. And so like eating 800 grams of fruit and vegetable crowds out a lot of bad food. And so like what she would say is if you want to eat late at night, that's fine. But you got to eat fruits and vegetables. You got to get your 800. It's like 6
You know what
cups
I'll
of
do?
fruit and
What did you
vegetables.
say her name was?
E.C. Sinkowski.
I'm gonna start like even if I'm with a friend and I go, let's watch maybe like if they have a lecture because I don't like to read. It's hard.
She's on some podcasts. I'll send you some stuff. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple other quick things. I want to talk to you about some of your stand-up. So in Act Happy, you have a band, which I think was really neat.
Thank you.
And you even did a little singing.
It's silly singing, yeah.
Yeah, but you did some singing. And the other thing that you do in your stand-up is you do act-outs. So will you describe for the listener, like
in what sense?
when you take on a character and you start being someone else and doing, not in that show per se, but in general, I've seen you do, you step into a character,
I
beyond,
think
who's more than just Todd Glass.
I think it might be. I think sometimes maybe it is me. I don't know. Angrier than I think I know what you're saying, but I think it might just be me getting like just so like into something that it's me, but it's another version of me.
Okay.
I think.
I just recall watching some of your stand-up and you...
Maybe I'm just confused what you mean. If I knew, I'd be like, "Oh, that."
Like an act out being like you become another character, and so instead of just you telling jokes on stage, now there's two people having a conversation.
Oh, sometimes I take the opposing view.
Yes.
I always liked Phil Donahue when I was growing up, and Phil Donahue would always go up to someone in the audience and take their side. Because and what are we gonna do? And in my day, we didn't do this, and these kids are up there, and I don't know who and what's the world turning into? And that was his way of saying that's what you're thinking.
I see.
So I argue something, and then I take the character of the opposing side. It's I guess you're not going to change into an opinion unless you know what they're thinking, and I made the mistake of saying it sarcastic. I know the other side's going, well, that's not going to make them like you. So I'm really desperately trying when I take the opposing.
You're trying
view,
to take a fair stance on the other side.
Take a fair stance on the other side. The only thing the most recent thing I can, do you want an example?
Yeah, I'm just curious about it as a technique, right? You know what I mean? When I think about it, comedians use lots of techniques. So obviously the first goal is laughs, and the second goal is to convince, right? To change people's minds about things. And so people do a lot of things. They use self-deprecation. They act in silly ways. They sing. They do more than just stand in front of a microphone and just tell jokes. And so I'm curious about some of those techniques. You had a band. You know what I mean? And so you obviously thought this was important enough to incorporate into your act. It's unusual. I think it's neat. It kind of fits your...
I've been having the time of my life out on the road with, mostly I have a band, even if it's a band from that city.
Okay.
But playing as their people are being seated. I want it to get fucking good quick. They're being seated.
Yeah.
And there's seating. It's 45 minutes. There's a 3-piece band playing cool music.
Yeah, it's great.
But
people are on dates. People want to have fun,
and it changes the experience night and day. They walk into a club, they split the curtain, they look at the room, they're like, "What the fuck? Is this where we're at tonight?" But anyway, I think the act outs. I think if that's what you're talking about, the opposing view, and I know you're in the crowd going, "What am I gonna?" In certain situations, I think I have this thing I've been saying in my act. I always say you have to be funnier than preachy. And I cross that line, and I don't like to, and I work at it. Meaning you can say whatever you want on stage, whether it's political, whether it's social, or whatever it is, or whether you dig deep into the bowels of silliness, like a guy like Steve Martin would do. Just, whatever you do. I'm sorry, I got lost. So I'm learning new ways. And one of the things I've been saying to audiences is, let me ask you a question, and you're not going to want to say no to this, but if the answer is no, I'll respect you. If you have an opinion and I say something that's clean and clear, forget about the other half of the things I say. Half the time, I don't even think I'm trying to say something. I think I say it shitty myself. But when it comes out perfect, and if that happens tonight, be honest, do you want to change your opinion? Be honest. Now's the time to go, fuck no, I'll respect the hell out. I'll be honest with you. If someone says, do you want to discuss whether hitting children is okay at any level? I'll be honest with you. I'll be like, no, I'm past that.
Yeah.
I've done enough research. I've asked enough people, and I have zero tolerance. It's just the way, it just makes sense. I've heard people discuss it. I've heard it, So I'm not going to lie to you. If you go, hey, Todd, can I tell you why you should hit your kids? I'll pay you the respect to go, I don't anymore. You know what I mean? Like if you told me why black people shouldn't marry white people, does that make me a fucking cocky asshole that doesn't want to hear the opposing side? No, I don't want to discuss that. Yeah. So I say to the audience, tell me. I don't say all that I just said to the audience.
Sure.
So
but this is your perspective.
To get into the mindset of people that don't want to nip and tuck their vocabulary. How can I get them to yank them out of this? And I notice most people feel like kids feel, because when you're a kid, you're always asking your kids, say polite, say thank you, say there's a man holding something, there's a delivery man behind you and you're leaving the store, hold the door for him if he's carrying boxes, give that older person your seat. So a little kid, I say this on stage, it feels like, all right, can't I just live my life? But when history writes itself, the majority of the things you were asking your children were just right, not picky, not leaving one finger up. We're that's an extreme level of manners that most people that I know don't want their children to have. But the basics, you look, and that's how I feel about you as people in the audience. I'll say, so when we're saying, hey, this group wants to be called that, that's say please. When we're saying, hey, this group would rather be called that, that's saying hold the door open. We nip and tuck our verbiage. So you're being like your kid. You feel like you're being yelled at, but the truth is a lot of times a little kid will go, Daddy yelled at me and said I couldn't have a cookie. But the truth is, he probably just said, you can't have a cookie. But that felt like being yelled at. Yeah. And I feel like that's what most adults are like. They're like, hey, you can't call, I don't want to be yelled at anymore about not using that word. Really, were you yelled at, or you just lovingly did someone with all the passion in the world try to tell you how that would make you a better person? Just like you with your kid. So be very careful if you're having childlike reactions to common sense requests. Because to me, that's all it is that goes around. We try to, just changing your verbiage. So I'll try to hit it and give both sides of it. I know I went very long and I apologize. No, I'm just going to go kill myself.
So, I have this saying, I have a niece and nephew. I don't have kids, but I have a niece and nephew. I took them on a family vacation. They're from South Jersey, so not far from where you grew up, and really provincial upbringing. And so I'm trying to expose them to the world. And so, of course, this thrusts me into their world, which I'm not used to hanging out with two surly teens. They're good kids, but they're teens. And there were a number of times during the trip where I just said, you need to learn to live better, right? This is like, I know how I sound, but like, we're working on you living better, and the world, you will be better off, and the world will be better off as a result of these. They seem inconsequential to, little things, but they add up and they matter, because polite people don't do them. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about was something you brought up when I reached out to you. So this is actually a perfect segue, I think, because, so you talked about changing your verbiage and nipping and tucking, so to speak. This idea of comedy being under attack. There's this sort of, you're starting to hear comics, for lack of a better word, complain about what's happening in terms of PC culture, outrage culture, and so on. And this is something I know you've thought about, and I'd like to hear.
Well, in full disclosure, I did when you reached out through email. I think that it's a topic that
it's coming up. I did a show.
By the way, I'm on, just so everyone listening knows, because I think it's fair. I'm on the opposite side. I don't think it's ruining comedy.
Okay.
Just so people if it's refreshing to hear.
It is. By the way, it is refreshing to hear. So let me for a moment say it's refreshing to hear.
But can you do me a huge favor? Don't be afraid to tell me if you disagree with me, because I'm so passionate. Usually when someone's sitting across from me, you might go, Todd, don't worry, I'm not. I feel like they're going, oh, he's really, because like if we listed everything that has been an outcry on the internet, like, hey, don't use that word, or don't, 95% of the time, I agree with the outcry.
I see.
So I'm really, because just like a kid with manners, to me, it overwhelmingly will. All the things that we're asking people to do, I'm coming to this with some science.
Yeah.
So, but God, let me let you lead. If we're going to talk about this, I'll at least let you lead and ask me the questions.
Well, I'm afraid you and I are going to be too close on the same side, because
you know what? Though I'll yell differently.
Okay, yeah. So I think I'll give you my opinion, and you can pile on.
Cool.
This actually I just did a show. I just did Shane Moss's show, Stand Up Science. It's an if anybody ever listens to this and has a chance, and is actually, if you're listening to this podcast, you will love Stand Up Science, because it's basically scientists doing TED style talks interspersed with comedy, panel at the end, and Shane does really great comedy about
Shane's
science. Great. And so this idea of PC culture came up. It's come up in previous podcasts. And my feeling is that most of the outcry about it is a bunch of older men whose stuff doesn't work as well as it used to. And they're complaining about young people. And what they should be doing is recognizing that they're not changing with the times. And that what they should be doing is seeing this as an opportunity to challenge themselves in new ways. And if they're not, they're just going to get left behind. That there's going to be another generation of young comedians who are going to come up, and they're going to see what it is that with these older comics who are I can't do college campuses anymore, everybody's too sensitive, blah blah blah. What they're failing to realize is that a fundamental element of comedy is the need for novelty, and that you need to embrace constraints in order to make good comedy. And call it outrage culture, call it PC, call it whatever it is.
It's been going on for years. We just changed the title of it.
I agree with that. So my thing is, first of all, it's not that this is new. It's just people have a voice, right? So there's two things that are happening. One is the jokes are now reaching people they weren't intended for. That's first. And then the second one is those people have a chance to respond when they weren't able to before. And so then the question just becomes, are you going to either weather it without complaining, like this is the way, this is my line in the sand, or are you going to go, this is a big audience and they deserve, if you truly are a comic who speaks truth to power, these are not the bad guys. Trans people are not the bad guys. Women are not the bad guys. And so then there's a matter of like, okay, you're a smart person. You have a craft that allows you to make things funny. Let's start using it to make some new things funny. Or disagree or do whatever.
Let me just say this first, because
sure.
I don't like to have this conversation without this prenup thing. I wrote it down.
Okay.
Because I defend that comedians, at the end of the day, now it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, should be able to do whatever they want. That's what's great about comedy. Whatever they want. If I say something that changes your mind, but no, because you can be PC. PC is not the issue. I made this up, but I think I'm right.
Okay.
PC is why you stopped or started something. Is it genuine? So in other words, if you're using the word retarded around your house, like that's retarded, that's, instead of clumsy, but you don't use it on stage just because you're tired of getting corrected, but you're PC because you're doing what the masses want. It's not from your heart. So I'm a comedian. I defend that every comedian should do whatever they want. If this was a conversation right now about should we ever ban a comedian, that doesn't mean in the right way, but I mean like comedians should do whatever they want, and everything can be funny. Everything can be funny, whether it is 9/11 or whether it's cancer or whether it's death. Everything can be funny. There is not a topic that should be. But I'm allowed to give my opinion on it. Mm-hmm. And this is the part that's hard for me not to yell, the preamble, when they go, oh, you can't say, I'm defending your right to say it, but can't we comment on it? Mm-hmm. Can't we comment on it? And also, I know this, there would not be brilliant comedy. We would not have brilliant comedy if we didn't know to ignore the pulse of certain audiences that night. It doesn't mean they were all a bad audience, but as a whole. So sometimes we wouldn't have brilliant comedians, if sometimes those comedians didn't ignore the pulse of that given night.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that it has to be always that. Can't you grow in your own fruition? So with that said, I do go into this with somewhat of a science, and I'm very, very passionate about it because I believe at the end of the day, it all boils down to me, the kids today. It's sort of the adage of the kids today.
Yeah, that's right.
That is going to do more detriment to this society than drug overdose. I can't list them now. Yesterday I was thinking of them. Now I'm not saying that those things, you get it. I'm not marginalizing those things, but because it stops our world. It's bigger than comedy. And you know what? I appreciate you letting me talk about it, but I'm even angry that no one's writing about it. An article on, is the PC ruining comedy or can it help it? The fact that no one is writing an article about it, no one doing a documentary about it, it fucking annoys me because it needs to be stopped. If I'm right, I can better comedy. And why can't I think while I was on this planet that I finally got the platform to say it and I changed some people's beliefs? That I went, is it because a lot of, it's ruining comedy. Everybody thinks it's just ruining it. They don't even ask me my side. They think because I'm a comedian, I go home for Thanksgiving or you're talking to someone at a situation where they don't know you're a comedian. They go, is it hard to do comedy with this PC culture? So now it's even more frustrating. You're not even asking me what side I'm on. You're thinking, well, of course you're a comedian, because most comedians agree. And here's the part where I think I bring some facts into it. Just please let me go a little long on this and then I'll shut the fuck up. Is that most people, there's an old expression. Me and my friend Kevin made it up to have good discussions.
I like this old expression.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you fib and it gives it more validity. There's an old. But when you're having a discussion, I call it therapy, detective, lawyer. Therapy, of course, means, and I work on this, try to remember to listen. Listen, don't yell. Lawyer, ask questions out of context. Because if you say to someone, how would you feel? They know where you're going with it. You have to hit them. So with that, I say this. I ask this question. My fantasy of asking a comedian that thinks PC is ruining comedy. I would say, hopefully with no tone in my voice, that most people, I'm being fair to you, when we're going to have a debate today, may pretend it's a comedian in front of me right now.
Okay.
Overwhelmingly, most people agree with you. And he'd go, yeah, no, I'm just giving you, I know that, like overwhelmingly, you got... And he'd go, yeah, I'm sure he's going to say, yeah.
I see.
And I go, and that, I want to take the cockiness out of my voice. I would say that to him. That doesn't concern you. That doesn't right there. And here's an expression I have. Anybody that heard what I just said either doesn't know what I meant, or I'll explain myself. But you have to say, I don't care if it changes your opinion what I said. What I'm saying is the masses have been wrong since the beginning of time. So the fact that we're not talking about eventually where they get them, but the fact that you're saying that you know that most people are tired of PC. And as a comedian, if you're not going, oh, that's not good. I'm on the side of most people. Most people didn't want women to vote. Most people didn't want women to be cops. Most people didn't want gay people to get married. You're on the side of most people on the beginning of the fight. And if I don't bend your ear on that, and listen what I said, I didn't say change your opinion. I have to go, oh my God, Todd just made a great point. I'm completely changing my opinion. But if I didn't bend your ear, bend your ear means... That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm smiling as you.
That's a good point.
Say this because I'm nodding my head and smiling because I agree. This idea that
everyone's on your side.
We know we're wrong, right? So this is. I think Chuck Klosterman wrote a book about this recently, and the idea is when you look back through human history, at any one moment of time, most of things that we believed ended up being wrong.
Right. People didn't want to pick up when you talk about resistance. Now, how am I going to bring some with me? Because my fantasy still is, so I got someone's ear. They're going, it's a comedian maybe that likes me personally, but disagrees with all my social beliefs. I imagine that's out there because I have comedians like that. Their act I can't fucking take, but I actually have affection for them and I love them. If I separate that the words that come out of their mouth cause people anguish, which sounds a little sarcastic, but sometimes you do. You like somebody so much. So if everyone agree, if I didn't bend your ear and go, wait, he has a point, like I'm on the side of the masses tends to be wrong. There's a little science to that.
Well, also it's just like what makes a person a comic is that they're typically a misfit. They don't fit in, that they don't see the world the way everybody else sees the world. And so what you're suggesting is now you've gotten to a point where you're seeing the world the way most people are seeing the world.
Right.
And that goes against your instinct as a comic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they always, and it's like, it's not on your side. And again, this goes bigger than comedy. This is the kids today, the people that it should be leading. And by the way, children aren't mad at us. And I'm also not saying that there aren't young people that do a lot of these mistakes. But you know what? They're allowed to make mistakes, young people. Older people who think they have so much to offer. Yeah, one of the things you have to offer is wisdom.
Yeah.
And if you're 20 and you use the word, whatever the word should be, gay as an adjective, that's gay or that's retarded, and you're 20, all right. But if you're 40, hopefully by 40 you have some wisdom that you're able to offer. And you do. There are tons of people that are 40, 50, 60, 70 that have this wisdom to offer. But if defending the word retarded, so I blame all old people for that word because young people are allowed to mistakes. They shouldn't hear a 40-year-old housewife or a father go, that's retarded. Right. So it's all your fault to me. And one last thing is that, so I think what it comes from, I really do. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put the heat on anyone listening. If you're not writing or someone taking this to town, taking this to test, you ever watch a news anchor talk about what's going on right now, but he gets it out of your head? Once in a blue moon, you turn on the TV and you see someone just putting sense to everything that's going on. Someone needs to do this with this. Mm-hmm. Now, I know you said someone's doing a documentary, but it needs to be done because I think what it is this. And again, I think it pretty much all boils down to the kids today or whatever. You know, it's some other stuff too. It's words you can't say. It's scared to death, I think. And I think what it is okay, it's subliminal. I mean, that's why that word exists. Whenever I think, God, could it really be that subliminal? Well, they came up with that word. So I don't think people are literally thinking it, but with a little digging. Mm-hmm. I think it's people are scared of dying. So instead of facing it, because it's scary, I get scared too. But instead of facing it with a real way, well, maybe this is a good way. At least I was born at the perfect time. Oh, stop it. Come on! You're supposed to put a litmus test on absurdity. I'm saying, thinking all people, but especially comedians. You're supposed to put a litmus test on absurdity. And what was my point? I was just saying.
About dying.
About you're afraid to die, so you're going to make pretend. Oh, I was born here at a better time. I was born when music was at its best. I was born when people played outside. Come, stop.
I know. I feel like
you weren't. You were born at a great time, but there's still good music. And kids are brilliant. Kids are so fucking brilliant that sometimes I have I get a crush on youth because they can do it all. They you know what? They're polite and they're everything and they're care and they're not mad at us. That's the thing about youth. They're not mad at us. They love old music. They just happen to know that there's also still good music. Yeah. They'll play cassettes, so they're not mad at you. You're mad at them. And you know what people always do here? And I want to prevent it. Oh, I know there's some brilliant people. I know. Don't I know me? I'm talking about what you talk about the majority of the time. I've never walked into you, ever. Because I'm not saying kids are perfect, but I know people, and I can say never. People who don't say never. I can say never. Have I overheard them? If it's a friend of mine that is just a regular friend that's not a comedian or a podcast, never walked in on them going, you know what fucking blows about old people? What we do into this world? You know what's great or about young people? I don't mean once. I don't mean now. You're going to tell me a story while I'm talking. I'm talking about what I overhear you all the time. Not you now trying to add in a few good things to prove you're well balanced. 100% of the time you talk about how kids today are less than worthy. You think you're right about that, even though the history of the planet shows you're wrong. So you talk about addiction. That is the addiction. Short-term gratification for long-term horror. That you're right, because if they're right, you don't have any work to do on yourself. I get it. That's a lot easier than you have to remember what this group wants to be called and what that group wants to be called. And yeah, that's your kid. We go right back to a little kid. You're not being picked on. You're not being picked on. We're asking you fair requests to trim and tuck your verbiage, and not because people are sensitive either. That's another thing that throws me into it. No one's sensitive. It's like if you said to someone, hey, 4 plus 4, and you hear them, they're adding their check. 4 plus 4 is 20, and you go, oh, no. 4 plus 4 is 8. And they go, oh, did I offend you? No, I'm correcting you. I'm not offended. I'm not a frail flower.
Yeah.
And they always, I swear to God, when people say, because there's so much I want to get off, and I feel like this thing I'm doing now hits an audience that doesn't normally hear it. So I get excited.
This is a different audience.
I get excited because, it's...
Well, okay, so first of all,
Does anything I say, is it...
Yeah, Can
I change anybody? Can we have anybody listen to this and go, oh my God, he's right. I'm just turning into my parents and I don't even have the dignity to admit it. They shrug their shoulders.
I think I would say, I'm going to say two things and we're going to wrap.
Okay.
I agree with you. Look, I think it's tough to be a kid these days. It's always a little hard to be a kid. And so when I hear people criticize millennials and all this kind of stuff, it's just old people judging young people for being young. I mean, that's really simply, that's what it is. Can we
stop people from doing it in a loving way? Can we bring any science? Because what happens when someone disagrees with us right now? They're listening right now and they disagree. Matter of fact, if they disagree, maybe they're just listening because... Haven't we brought a few solids to this?
Okay, so here's the way that I think this stuff works is, first of all, we know that it can happen. So I'll use, you brought up gay marriage earlier. In 20 years, attitudes about gay marriage in the United States flip-flopped, right? That's incredibly fast when you think about prejudice in that way. Now, how did that happen? Well, is because it just started, what it is like you're one voice right now on this podcast. And the idea is that voice gets repeated, it gets amplified, it shows up here, it shows up there. And then what ends up happening is the good guys start saying gay marriage is fine. Right? You know what I mean? And then And so what ends up happening is like the people you admire, the people who have sway, it starts to kind of roll.
I'm gonna. Okay, I promise this will be, because I'm literally trying to take people with us. And when somebody says they're okay with gay marriage, I don't ask this because I'm trying to look. We want people to change their views.
Yes,
I get it. So I'm not asking this.
Yes,
but when somebody says when there's a new thing we're trying to get people not to do, just like a kid, it never ends. It's just nipping and tucking.
That's right.
Hey.
Living better. Living better.
When somebody says, they'll give their resume, as I do too. They'll be like, let's say they don't understand the non-binary thing, right? And they'll be like, I'm all right. I'm not like, I don't give a fuck about like gay marriage. I'm all right with gay marriage. I want to go, let me ask you a question. When were you all right with gay marriage?
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you tell me it was a year ago, I'm not going to say, oh, you were last on board to get, I'm going to say you got on board and I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
But why can't you lead people into it? Now we're going to start the same thing with non-binary or transgender bathrooms. Don't be last this time. I'm glad you got on board. And I am going to say this because maybe it'll make people go, God, maybe he's right. I wasn't all right with it right away. I didn't understand it. It was confusing. But if I could come to this conclusion, maybe because there are a lot of good, sweet people that are confused on this.
Sure.
They're nice. They're kind. They're going, what's going on? I'm driving down the street and I thought, because at first I adhere to it because I know it's the right thing to do. And then I learn slowly and I ask questions. People go, oh, you can't even ask questions anymore. You're some detective, lawyer, therapist. When you say you can't ask questions anymore about it, you get caught in your lie. Because I know from talking to enough people going through it, they love questions.
Yeah, of course.
So do you understand how if you say that you're getting caught in you can't even ask a question? A question is not saying that grosses me out. There are some facts, and that is not a question. If you want to make dissertation towards it, call it for what it is. But don't cry the victim and go, you can't even ask a question. You ask one question, you get yelled at. I'm driving down the street, and I thought, there's 8 billion types of bugs. There's like a fly, and there's 80,000 types of fly. There's a flower, and there's 80,000 types of flower. There's chromosomes, and there's 8, and they split up, and they're... But why can't you just look at it this way? Maybe when it came to sexuality, this simple, that this wasn't enough to go, okay, there's men and there's women and, there's gay people. We're done. Everyone should fit into that.
Right.
All we're saying is, and it might get confusing. When there was a sexual revolution in the 60s, it gets confusing. But we want to shred it up. Some people don't fit into that. And you think everything's out of control. And I get it. Even nice, kind people that are listening are going, I do feel that. Like, oh my God. And it's them, there, that. It won't be. It's confusing in the beginning because it's new. But on the other end of it, forget about just for transgender people or just for gay people or just for women. A sexual revolution can be for straight white men that have some confines.
Of course.
So why is this so bad that we're shredding up expression and these people don't feel like they fit into 3 categories? It's almost silly. You should go, oh my God, of course they can.
Right.
Guy, girl, and you can be gay too. Okay, we're all done. Everybody should be able to live a healthy life by conforming to those 3 things. Now, if you're listening to this right now and you've had a problem with it, I don't know why you can't go, what you want your kid to do, what you want your kid or your nephew to do, go, oh, well, I'll fight to be right, but on this one, good, clean point. I think I might have just sort of understood it. Mm-hmm. If you don't, I love you, but I want that to bother you, that what I just said didn't make sense, because it does.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I want to give you a different way to think about the death part of your argument. I think it's simpler than that. I don't think it has to do with dying at all. It has to do with what's called reactance. And it's just simply this. People don't like to be told no. It's just Romeo and Juliet. Don't date that boy. It just makes you want to date the boy. And so, whether you're a 4-year-old, no, you can't have that cookie, or you're a 40-year-old, no, you can't say those things. It's just our first reaction is, I don't like to be told no. And so I think that that's where some of this comes from, and it's just a very simple part of being human, and
I think, by the way, I think you're right. Probably a big dose of it. And it reminds me of something an audience member told me once, that it's just sort of as simple as some of it.
I hope
saying.
This is good. We're ending on
Yes. He said, it's just feeding into what you're saying. And I've been on the other side of this. I've been on the side that I don't. It could be just as simple as you're talking too loud. You tell a friend that at a restaurant, someone you love, or, hey, your breath is a little damp.
Yeah.
Sometimes even that's like you can get mad just because you were told something.
Yeah.
So don't do that to life. Don't have, someone's asking you something that's fair, it's kind, even helping you, and you're like, well, I'm not talking too loud.
Yeah,
I have a friend
that's
that
reactance.
every time he's talking too loud, I would get nervous. His name, my friend Daniel, and I would go, Daniel, I didn't want to say it. I go, you're talking too loud. He goes, thank you. He goes, I know it's true. My girlfriend tells me that, and I'm happy to hear it. And whenever I have to remind him, I'm always just as warm that he will take it because I don't want to say it. He'll be like, no, thank you. I appreciate
that's
that.
good.
He'll lower his voice. So be that person with these changes.
I agree.
And can I tell you something, folks? You'll be so proud of yourself. If you're just doing it now to make me proud, later in life you're going to make yourself proud that you were always able to grow and change and call people change that. And you go, I don't know why they want to be called that. I bet if you asked lovingly, you'd learn.
Yeah, it's a much nicer way to live.
It is.
It's much nicer way. Todd, I knew this would be spirited. And I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you turning up the air conditioning and having this conversation.
This was great. This is just, I always say, I like to talk about this. It reminds me, by no means do I get up on a pedestal, and it sounds like it, I get it, but I'm constantly learning. So if I repeat it and maybe change someone else's opinion, remind myself to live
better,
live a better life, and be different than I was 20 years ago. I watch old shows I did 20 years ago, nothing horrendous, but I go, Todd, you made those mistakes back then and you weren't a bad person. Just watch your material, watch it, because it lives in infamy.
That's great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode,